Revenge as a dish served cold. TLDR. My boss messed with me, so I helped in an ongoing corporate takeover and ultimately got to watch them get fired. I took a finance job for a moderately sized public company in the New York area right out of college. The company was not performing well. Lots of debt and selling off assets. It was a dinosaur and had been in a state of slow decline since before I had joined. Radical change was needed to turn the ship around. But my boss and the CEO didn't want anything to do with change, as they had lucrative contracts and had a long-term plan to sell the company. While they were still in charge, they were partying like it was 1999, jet-setting around the country, throwing lavish parties and giving kickbacks to government officials. To me, recent college graduate, it did not register immediately what I had gotten myself into. I looked around at the extravagance despite withering performance and saw it as the perks of putting up with late nights and short tempers. Fast forward 3 years and I have made myself a staple at the company. I was executing on senior management strategy and sourcing my own deals. To be fair, I was not single-handedly upholding the company. We were still dipping. In fact, activist investors had flipped a few board seats and were trying to oust the chairman of the board, which is the equivalent of a coup. But even with all of that, I was definitely playing an outsized role in the corporate machine and thought it was time to get compensated. I went to my boss with a request for promotion and a pay raise well in advance of my annual review. The day of my review, my boss calls me into their office and tells me to close the door and have a seat. Once seated, they say, "I have something very important to ask you. Can you get me a double scoop of PB ice cream from the place downstairs?" I was dumbfounded that they could trivialize something that meant so much to me, but after a while, I realized this was the price for putting my faith in questionable people for so long. Never ended up having my review. Didn't get promoted and was handed a slip that had a modest raise, but half of what I asked for. Let me tell you something. I am a vindictive fuck. I decided right then and there I was going to get even with these guys. I thought getting even would look like finding a new job and satisfaction in my career. Little did I know that I would get much more than that. My actions were about to bring on a chain reaction of comeuppance. Revenge. I immediately began to look for new jobs. Contacted a recruiter, who lined me up with several interviews, one of which was at a great boutique firm. Within 14 days, I had accepted the firm's offer. I then backed up data I had compiled over the past several years, containing records of my boss and the CEO's exploits, including receipts, email chains and voicemails. Most not illegal, but definitely unethical. I definitely knew where the bodies were buried and I was going to keep as contingency, just in case I needed a trump card. I gave my notice, which was awesome. I'll never forget the look on my boss's face, and left with a modest going-away party. That could have been it. It could have ended there and I would have been happy. But the universe had other plans. Before starting at the new company, I received a call from an unknown number. It turned out it was one of the activist board members. They had heard about me from a mutual friend and that I was leaving the company. They wanted me to meet at their office so they could learn why I was leaving. I told them I could meet them the next day. Sure enough, I sit down with them for hours, telling them about what's going on at the company. At first, they nodded along in understanding, but as I went deeper, their mouth shot open, aghast at the events I described. At the end of our meeting, they said they wanted to connect me with a friend who would love to hear the story. That friend was the activist investor. We also met for hours, discussing the same events I had described to the board member. However, I brought along a prop to this meeting. the backed up folders supporting my claims at the end of the meeting. They kept the files, which were added to their case against the current board. Even with the information I supplied, the activist investor was a small-time guy trying to take down a seasoned and well-connected chairman of a public company. Nothing was going to happen. But everything changed with COVID. The company went into free fall, while management refused to adapt to the drastically changed circumstances. Meanwhile, I kept in contact with the activist investor as they met with other investors, sharing snippets of the information I provided. I would clarify items as needed and was happy to do it, as I had made this my crusade at this point. I'm doing all of this while working a new job, which I liked, but it paled in comparison to the thrill I was getting from actively participating in a proxy battle. They were able to convince enough power players so that on the morning of the annual investor meeting, the chairman was voted out and the board was reconstituted under the board member who had initially reached out to me. I got a thank you call and thought that was the end of my part in all this mess. However, a few weeks later, the CEO was fired and was replaced by the new chairman. I get a call from them a few weeks into their tenure asking my opinion on members of the executive team. We get into it and after 3 hours we had outlined a complete restructuring plan. As I am about to wrap the conversation up, they say, "But there's one more piece to this. Where do you want to fit in all of this?" Needless to say, I was pretty stoked. All in all, I got a substantial promotion and raise, which was more than enough to throw myself back into the belly of the beast. I walk back into that office on my first day and no one knew it was coming. It was like they saw a ghost, but after my former and new coworkers recovered, they came by my office to piece together how I had managed to come back in a significantly improved position. Everyone was in a great mood, at least for the first week. The second week, we had layoffs. I watched people I had known, some that I had liked and some that were terrible, get called into the conference room by HR and get handed banker's boxes. I was not happy about complicating these people's lives, especially during COVID. All except my former boss. They had it coming. When they walked back to their office to start clearing out, I got a look of recognition from him that I will remember to my last day. To me, it felt like they were thinking all of the ways they could have been a better boss. As to avoid this moment, to see this stoic person show so much emotion was jarring. I had been waiting for the better part of a year for this level of recognition, and the moment had arrived. My new job has been even more than I expected. Things have continued to work out and I have been able to do even more for the company since I was empowered. And best of all, I don't have to get ice cream anymore. How did you not call him in and ask him to get you some ice cream? Good read. What's your favorite ice cream flavor? Let me tell you something. I am a vindictive fuck. Gets popcorn ready. Great. After reading this, I want to eat PB ice cream and help stage an activist coup at an underperforming public company. The former I have done before and definitely will again. The latter, well, I'll just have to enjoy this well-written story instead. It's good to know someone on the board of directors. Can you elaborate on the ice cream thing? Maybe I misread it, but I'm not following. I am a vindictive fuck. As you are. A true savage. Nobody cared that you basically walked out the door with company records? The CEO and management might have been unethical, but wasn't walking out with receipts, voicemails, etc. unethical and illegal?
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Ericast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.